The emergency beacon screamed through the silence of deep space, its shrill cry cutting through the ambient hum of the cargo hauler's engines. Captain Sarah Chun rubbed her tired eyes and leaned forward in her pilot's seat, watching the distress signal ping repeatedly on her navigation display. 3 weeks into what should have been a routine supply run to the outer colonies, and now this. Computer, analyze signal origin and classification, she commanded, her voice hoarse from too much recycled air and not enough sleep. The ship's AI responded in its maddeningly calm tone. Signal originates from coordinates 847.2 to 1.556, approximately 4 light hours from current position. Classification: unknown vessel, non-human technology signatures detected. Warning: signal contains biological distress markers consistent with imminent life support failure. Sarah's blood ran cold. Non-human technology meant only one thing out here in the contested zone between human and Krillian space. The war had been raging for 15 years, ever since first contact had gone catastrophically wrong. The Krillians saw humanity as a virus to be eradicated, and humans had learned to return the favor. There were no prisoners taken, no mercy shown, just survival. But biological distress markers meant someone was dying out there. Sarah stared at the blinking red dot on her screen for a long moment, her conscience warring with her survival instincts. Every regulation, every military briefing, every horror story from the front lines told her to ignore the signal and continue on her route. Krillians would rather die than accept help from humans, and helping them was considered treason by Earth Central Command. The signal pulsed again, weaker this time. "Damn it," Sarah muttered, her fingers already dancing across the navigation controls. "Plot intercept course. Maximum burn." The cargo hauler groaned as Sarah pushed its aging engines beyond their recommended limits. The ship wasn't built for speed, but she coaxed every bit of velocity she could from the old girl. As they approached the signal's origin, her sensors began painting a clearer picture of what awaited them. It was a small craft, no bigger than a shuttle, tumbling end over end in the cosmic void. The hull was sleek and organic-looking, characteristic of Krillian biotechnology, but it was heavily damaged. Massive tears in the outer shell-vented atmosphere and debris in his space, leaving a glittering trail of destruction behind the dying vessel. "Computer, scan for life signs," Sarah ordered as she maneuvered her ship alongside the wreckage. "Single life form detected. Krillian physiology, juvenile classification. Life signs are weak and deteriorating rapidly. Estimated survival time without intervention, 17 minutes. A child." Sarah's throat tightened as she stared at the broken ship spinning helplessly before her. Whatever had happened here, whatever conflict had destroyed this vessel, there was a child aboard who was going to die unless she acted. Every instinct screamed at her to turn away. The war between humans and Krillians had been brutal and unforgiving. She had seen the aftermath of Krillian attacks on human colonies. Cities reduced to ash, civilians flayed alive by their crystalline weapons, children taken for experiments that defied human understanding. The Krillians showed no mercy to human young, so why should she risk everything for one of theirs? But as she watched the small crafts tumbling grow more erratic, Sarah knew she couldn't leave. Not child. She had sworn an oath once, back when she still wore a military uniform, to protect the innocent. Wars were fought by adults, but children were always casualties. "Prepare the docking bay for emergency rescue," she commanded, already suiting up in her environmental gear. "Seal all internal bulkheads and prepare for potential contamination protocols." The docking procedure was harrowing. The Krillian shuttle was barely holding together, its bio-hull cracking further with each magnetic clamp that locked onto its surface. Sarah had to move fast before the entire structure collapsed and vented its remaining atmosphere into her cargo bay. When the airlock finally cycled open, Sarah stepped into an alien environment unlike anything she had ever experienced. The shuttle's interior was grown rather than built, with walls that curved and flowed like the inside of a living creature. Bioluminescent strips provided weak, pulsing light that reminded her uncomfortably of a heartbeat. The air was thick and humid, carrying scents that were both floral and metallic. She found the child in what appeared to be a sleeping alcove near the shuttle center. The young Krillian was small, perhaps equivalent to a human 10-year-old, though alien physiology made exact comparisons difficult. Its skin was pale blue-white with darker blue markings that spiraled across its limbs and face like tattoos. Long, silver hair fell across features that were hauntingly beautiful despite being obviously non-human. The child's breathing was shallow and labored, and strange, crystalline growths appeared to be spreading across its skin. "Jesus," Sarah whispered, kneeling beside the unconscious form. She had seen Krillian adults before, usually in the split second before they try to kill her, but never a child. The young alien looked so vulnerable, so fragile, that her protective instincts overwhelmed every bit of military training she had ever received. The crystalline growths were spreading faster now, and Sarah recognized them from intelligence briefings. Krillian bioships were symbiotic organisms that required a psychic bond with their pilots. When a ship died, it took its bonded pilot with it, the symbiotic crystals consuming their body from within. This child was dying the same slow, agonizing death as its vessel. Sarah didn't hesitate. She scooped the small alien into her arms, surprised by how light it felt, and carried it back to her ship. The child stirred slightly during transport, large violet eyes opening briefly to stare up at her in confusion before closing again. In her medical bay, Sarah worked frantically to stabilize her unexpected patient. Human medical equipment wasn't designed for alien physiology, but the basic principles of trauma care seemed to apply. She established in 4-line to combat dehydration, used broad-spectrum antibiotics to prevent infection, and began carefully removing the crystalline growths with surgical tools. It was delicate work. The crystals seemed to be rooted deep in the child's circulatory system, and removing them too quickly could cause massive bleeding. Sarah worked for hours, her hands steady despite her exhaustion, carefully extracting each growth and sealing the wounds they left behind. The child woke during one of these procedures, its violet eyes snapping open as Sarah worked on a particularly stubborn crystal near its shoulder. For a moment, human and alien stared at each other in complete silence. Sarah expected fear, hostility, or the legendary Krillian battle fury she had heard so much about. Instead, she saw something she recognized despite the alien features: gratitude. "It's okay," Sarah said softly, though she doubted the child understood her words. "You're safe now. I'm trying to help you." The young Krillian's eyes tracked her movements as she continued working, but it made no attempt to resist or escape. When Sarah accidentally nicked a blood vessel and cursed under her breath, the child actually reached out with one small hand to touch her arm, as if offering comfort. That simple gesture broke something inside Sarah's chest. This wasn't a monster or an enemy soldier. This was just a frightened child, far from home, and completely dependent on the mercy of a species that had been taught to hate its kind. She worked through the night, sustained by coffee and determination. By morning, she had removed all the visible crystals and stabilized the child's condition. The young alien was sleeping peacefully, its breathing deep and regular. The blue markings on its skin had shifted from dark purple to a lighter lavender shade, which Sarah hoped was a good sign. It was only then that she allowed herself to consider the magnitude of what she had done. She was harboring an enemy alien aboard her ship. If discovered, she would face court-martial, imprisonment, possibly even execution for treason. Her career, her life, everything she had worked for would be destroyed. But looking down at the sleeping child, Sarah found she didn't care. Some things were more important than regulations or even personal survival. Protecting the innocent was one of them. The child woke again several hours later, this time remaining conscious for longer periods. Sarah tried offering it various foods from her supplies, eventually finding that it could digest certain fruits and vegetables without apparent ill effects. Communication was difficult at first, limited to gestures and simple sounds, but the young alien seemed intelligent and eager to learn. Sarah began teaching it basic English words, starting with simple concepts like food, water, and safe. The child proved to be a quick learner, its pronunciation improving rapidly despite obvious differences in vocal structure. In return, it began teaching Sarah words in its own language, though the flowing, musical syllables were nearly impossible for human vocal cords to reproduce properly. She learned that the child's name was something like Zephian, though her attempt to pronounce it made the young alien giggle in a sound surprisingly similar to human laughter. In return, she taught it to call her Sarah, which it pronounced with a slight musical trill that made her own name sound almost beautiful. As the days passed, Sarah found herself growing attached to her unexpected passenger. Zephian was curious about everything, examining her equipment with wide violet eyes and asking endless questions in its improving English. The young alien seemed to have an intuitive understanding of technology that amazed Sarah, often figuring out how devices worked with minimal explanation. But it was the child's gentleness that truly surprised her. Krillian adults were known for their aggression and territorial nature, but Zephian showed no such traits. Instead, the young alien was remarkably empathetic, seeming to sense Sarah's moods and offering comfort in small ways. When Sarah was tired, Zephian would quietly prepare simple meals. When she seemed stressed about their precarious situation, the child would hum soft melodies that somehow always managed to calm her nerves. The crisis came on their fourth day together. Sarah's ship's sensors detected an approaching vessel, its signature matching that of a Krillian warship. She watched the blip on her screen grow larger, her blood turning to ice as she realized what this meant. If the warship detected Zephian aboard her vessel, they would both be destroyed without question. Sarah worried. Zephian observed, its English still imperfect but increasingly clear. The young alien had developed an uncanny ability to read human emotions. Yes, Sarah admitted, seeing no point in hiding their danger. Your people coming. They find you here, they kill us both. Zephian's violet eyes widened with understanding. For a moment, fear flickered across its delicate features. Then, to Sarah's amazement, the child moved closer to her, taking her hand in its smaller ones. You saved Zephian, it said carefully. Now Zephian protects Sarah. Sarah was about to ask what the child meant when alarms began blaring throughout her ship. The Krillian warship had detected them and was demanding immediate surrender and boarding. Standard protocol for humans found in Krillian space was immediate execution, no exceptions. Captain Chun, came a voice over the communication system, speaking heavily accented English. You will prepare for boarding. Resistance is futile. You will die regardless, but cooperation may make your death swift. Sarah looked down at Zephian, her heart breaking at the thought of failing to protect this remarkable child after everything they had been through together. But the young alien was staring at her with an expression of determination that seemed far too mature for its apparent age. Trust Zephian, the child said simply. Before Sarah could react, Zephian placed both hands against the wall of her ship and closed its violet eyes in concentration. Immediately, Sarah felt something strange happening around them. The air itself seemed to shimmer, and the familiar hum of her ship's systems took on a different quality, becoming somehow more alive. The communication system crackled again, but this time the Krillian voice sounded confused. Unknown vessel. Identify yourself immediately. Our sensors detect Krillian biosignatures aboard your craft. Sarah stared at Zephian in amazement as understanding dawned. The child was somehow masking their true identities, making her human cargo hauler appear to be something else entirely. But such technology was beyond anything humans had ever developed. How was a child accomplishing something so sophisticated? Zephian ship's singer, the young alien whispered without opening its eyes. Learn from Bond ship before it die. Now sing to Sarah's ship, make it family. The next few hours were the most terrifying of Sarah's life. The Corellian warship conducted a thorough scan of her vessel, its sensors probing every inch of her ship's structure. But whatever Zephian was doing, it worked. To the warship's instruments, they appeared to be a Corellian scout vessel on a routine patrol mission. When the warship finally moved on, continuing its search for whatever had generated the original distress call, Sarah collapsed in her pilot's seat with relief. Zephian swayed slightly as the effort of maintaining the deception took its toll, and Sarah quickly caught the exhausted child before it could fall. "Ow," she asked quietly, amazed by what she had witnessed. "Corellian ship's alive," Zephian explained tiredly. "Need singer to guide, to speak with ship soul." Zephian learned young, before parents die in war. "Now, teach Sarah's ship to sing." As if in response to the child's words, Sarah's ship hummed around them, its systems operating with a smoothness and efficiency she had never experienced before. Somehow, this remarkable young alien had awakened something within her vessel, transforming cold metal and circuitry into something approaching life. But the effort had clearly drained Zephian. The child's skin had taken on a pale, translucent quality, and its breathing was becoming labored again. Sarah carried the young alien back to the medical bay, her mind racing as she considered the implications of what had just happened. She had saved Zephian's life, but now it seemed the child was determined to save hers in return. The bond between them had grown far beyond simple gratitude or mutual necessity. They had become family in every way that mattered, human and alien, united by something deeper than species loyalty. As Sarah tucked Zephian into the medical bay's recovery bed, the young alien caught her hand weakly. "Sarah, mother," it whispered, using a term it had never spoken before. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes as she squeezed the small hand gently. "Sleep now, little one. You're safe. We both are." But even as she spoke the words, Sarah knew their safety was temporary at best. They were still deep in contested space, still hunted by both sides of a war that showed no mercy to those who dared to cross species lines. Worse, she was beginning to suspect that Zephian's abilities came with a price, one the young alien might not be strong enough to pay. As she watched the child sleep, Sarah made a silent promise. Whatever happened, whatever sacrifices were required, she would protect Zephian with her life. The young alien had already given her more than she had ever dreamed possible, transforming not just her ship, but her understanding of what it meant to be human. The war between their species might rage on, but here, in the quiet sanctuary of her ship, human and Corellian had found something worth fighting for: each other. And Sarah would defend that bond against any force in the galaxy, no matter the cost. The days following their encounter with the Corellian warship passed in uneasy calm. Sarah maintained course toward her original destination, a mining colony on the edge of human space called New Meridian. But everything had changed aboard her ship. The vessel itself seemed different now, more responsive to her commands, as if it had developed a consciousness of its own. Systems that had been glitchy for months now operated with perfect efficiency. The recycling units produced cleaner air and water than their specifications claimed possible. Even the aging engines ran smoother than they had since the day she had bought the ship. Zephian recovered slowly from the strain of manipulating the ship's systems, but the young alien seemed somehow diminished by the effort. Its normally vibrant violet eyes had taken on a clouded appearance, and it slept far more than before. When awake, Zephian continued its language lessons with Sarah, but spoke in increasingly halting sentences, as if the very act of communication required tremendous concentration. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked one morning as she found the child staring listlessly out the observation port at the stars beyond. "Zephian, changing," the young alien replied slowly, struggling to find the right words. "Ship song taking pieces of me, making me into bridge between metal soul and flesh soul." Sarah felt a chill of dread. "What do you mean? What's happening to you?" Zephian turned to her with those clouded eyes, and Sarah saw depths of ancient knowledge that seemed impossible in someone so young. In old time, before war, Krillian ships need Singer to live. Singer gives part of self to ship. Ship gives part of self to Singer. Become one being, together separate. But you're just a child, Sarah protested. Surely your people don't make children into these singers? A sad smile crossed Zephian's features. War changed everything. Children grow fast when no choice. My parents were singers before death. I learned from emergency, when ship dying. But Sarah's ship different. Not grown, not born to sing. Must teach it slowly, carefully, or both of us die. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. In saving her life, Zephian was literally giving pieces of itself to her ship, creating a bond that was slowly consuming the young alien. But if the child stopped the process, they would both be vulnerable to detection by either human or Krillian forces. There has to be another way, Sarah said desperately. I won't let you sacrifice yourself for me. Is not sacrifice, Zephian replied gently. Is evolution. Zephian becoming something new, something that never existed before. Human ship with Krillian soul, guided by child who is both and neither. Before Sarah could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Her instruments detected multiple vessels approaching fast, their configurations unmistakably human military. A full battle group, moving with the purposeful formation of hunters closing on their prey. Unknown vessel. This is Admiral Torres of the Earth Defense Force. Came a harsh voice over the communication system. You are ordered to maintain course and prepare for immediate boarding and inspection. Any deviation will be met with deadly force. Sarah's blood ran cold. Admiral Torres had a reputation for ruthlessness that was legendary even among Earth's military forces. He was known for his absolute intolerance of anything he perceived as collaboration with enemy forces. If he found Zephian aboard her ship, the child would be vivisected for intelligence purposes while Sarah faced execution for high treason. They find Zephian. They hurt Zephian, the young alien said with a matter-of-fact acceptance of someone who had seen too much of war's cruelties despite their youth. No, Sarah said firmly, moving to her ship's controls. I won't let that happen. But Zephian was already moving toward the ship's central console, its small hands reaching for the binaural interface it had helped create during their previous crisis. Must sing louder now. Must make Sarah's ship truly invisible. Wait, Sarah caught the child's arm gently but firmly. Last time nearly killed you. I won't watch you die to save me. Zephian looked up at her with those clouded violet eyes, and Sarah saw something there that broke her heart. The weary wisdom of a child forced to grow up too fast in a universe that showed no mercy to the innocent. Sarah, mother, Zephian said softly, using the term that had become its way of expressing the bond between them. Something's worth dying for. You teach Zephian this when you save my life. Now, Zephian understand. The human ships were closing fast, their weapons systems already charging for immediate firing solutions. In moments, they would be within range of scanners sensitive enough to detect alien biosignatures despite any electronic countermeasures Sarah might deploy. Then, Zephian did something unexpected. Instead of immediately moving to the binaural interface, the young alien took Sarah's hands in its own and pressed them against the control surface alongside its own smaller fingers. Sing with Zephian, the child whispered. Human and Krillian together. Make ship soul that belongs to both, belongs to neither. Sarah felt the world explode around her as her consciousness suddenly expanded beyond the boundaries of her physical form. Through Zephian's abilities, she found herself connected directly to her ship's systems in a way she had never imagined possible. Every circuit, every processor, every mechanical component was suddenly as much a part of her body as her own arms and legs. But more than that, she could feel Zephian's presence within the ship's growing consciousness, the young alien's life force interweaving with the vessel's electronic systems to create something entirely new. And now, impossibly, her own human awareness was being woven into that same matrix. The transformation was agonizing and ecstatic at the same time. Sarah felt her sense of self stretching, expanding, evolving into something that was simultaneously more and less than human. Through sensors that had become extensions of her nervous system, she perceived the approaching human ships with crystalline clarity. She could read their engine signatures, analyze their weapon configurations, even detect the emotional states of their crews through minute variations in their ship's operational patterns. More importantly, she could feel her own vessel changing around them. The hull began to shimmer and flow like liquid metal, its very molecular structure shifting in response to the hybrid consciousness now guiding it. Human technology merged with Krillian bioengineering principles that Zephian carried in its genetic memory, creating something that transcended both species' capabilities. The human battle group arrived to find empty space where their sensors had detected a civilian cargo hauler moments before. Admiral Torres ordered intensive scans of the entire area, but the instruments found nothing but cosmic dust and background radiation. Whatever vessel had been here had seemingly vanished without a trace. Aboard what had once been a simple cargo hauler, Sarah and Zephian slowly disconnected from their shared interface with the ship's consciousness. The effort had left them both drained, but somehow more connected than ever before. Sarah could still feel the young alien's presence in her mind. Not intrusive, but comforting, like having a beloved family member close by. "What did we just do?" Sarah asked quietly, still amazed by the intensity of the experience. "Made something new," Zephian replied, its voice stronger than it had been in days. "Ship not human anymore, not Krillian anymore. Something between, something better." Sarah looked around her transformed vessel with wonder. The walls now had an organic quality that reminded her of Zephian's original bioship, but they also maintained the familiar geometric patterns of human engineering. Displays showed information in flowing scripts that somehow her human eyes could read despite their alien origin. The air itself felt different, charged with an energy that was both technological and somehow alive. "The humans will keep looking for us," she pointed out, practical concerns intruding on her amazement. "Yes," Zephian agreed. "And Krillian ships too. Both sides fear what they do not understand. But now we understand both, can speak to both, can hide from both." Over the following days, Sarah began to grasp the true magnitude of their transformation. The ship could now analyze and mimic the technological signatures of vessels from either species, making them effectively invisible to conventional sensors. More remarkably, the hybrid consciousness they had created seemed to be learning and evolving on its own, developing capabilities neither human nor Krillian science had ever achieved. Zephian taught her to communicate with the ship consciousness directly, not through crude mechanical interfaces, but through the bioneural connection they had established. The vessel responded to their thoughts and emotions, its systems adapting in real time to their needs and desires. When Sarah felt claustrophobic, the walls would shift to create an illusion of greater space. When Zephian missed the bioluminescent environment of Krillian ships, panels would glow with soft, living light. But the most remarkable discovery came when Sarah attempted to plot a course to New Meridian and found that the ship's navigation systems had somehow acquired detailed knowledge of both human and Krillian space routes. Through Zephian's genetic memories and the ship's enhanced processing capabilities, they now had access to star charts and hyperspace paths that neither species had shared with the other. "We could go anywhere," Sarah realized with growing excitement. "Deep space, unexplored systems, places where neither side would think to look for us." "Yes," Zephian agreed, "but also could go places where others like us might be. Others who dream of peace instead of war." The idea struck Sarah with the force of revelation. If they could find other individuals on both sides who were tired of the endless conflict, who believed that cooperation was possible despite their species' differences, perhaps they could create something unprecedented, a community that transcended the arbitrary boundaries of the war. Their first test came sooner than expected. While traveling through a neutral system that served as an unofficial meeting point for smugglers and refugees, they detected a distress signal from a damaged human research vessel. The ship had suffered a catastrophic power failure while studying spatial anomalies near the system's asteroid belt, and its crew of 12 scientists were slowly dying as life support systems failed. "We should help them," Sarah said without hesitation. "Dangerous," Zephian pointed out. "They see Zephian, they fear. Maybe attack, maybe report to authorities." "Maybe," Sarah acknowledged. "But if we're going to build something better than this war, we have to start somewhere. And we can't let innocent people die just because they happen to be human." Zephian studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Then we help, but carefully. Show them new way is possible." The rescue operation required all their ships' new capabilities. Using their hybrid consciousness, they approached the disabled research vessel while maintaining perfect electronic camouflage, appearing to the human sensors as nothing more than a merchant ship responding to their distress call. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the expedition's leader, was suspicious when Sarah docked with their vessel. "Funny how you managed to get here so fast," she commented as Sarah began transferring emergency power cells to restore their life support. "This system isn't exactly on the main shipping routes." "Lucky for you, I was passing through," Sarah replied casually, working to establish temporary repairs that would get the research ship operational again. "What were you studying out here anyway?" "Quantum resonance patterns in the asteroid field," Dr. Vasquez explained, her scientific enthusiasm overcoming her suspicion. "We've detected energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. It's almost as if the asteroids themselves are exhibiting properties that shouldn't be possible according to conventional physics." Sarah and Zephian exchanged a meaningful look. Through their connection to the ship consciousness, they had detected the same anomalies. The asteroids weren't just rocks. They were the fossilized remains of an ancient biotechnological civilization, possibly millions of years old. The quantum patterns Dr. Vasquez had detected were the fading echoes of technologies that predated both human and Krillian civilizations. "Doctor," Sarah said carefully, "what if I told you there was more to those energy patterns than you realize? What if there was a way to understand them that your current scientific models can't explain?" Dr. Vasquez's eyes sharpened with interest. "What are you talking about? Do you have data we don't?" Instead of answering directly, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. "There's someone I'd like you to meet," she said. "Someone who might be able to help you understand what you're really looking at." When Sarah returned to her ship with Dr. Vasquez and two of her colleagues, Zephian was waiting in what had become their shared living space. The young alien had prepared itself for this moment, knowing that first contact between species often determined the course of future relationships. The human's reaction was everything Sarah had feared and hoped for. Dr. Martinez, the expedition's xenobiologist, actually stumbled backward in shock. Dr. Kim, their physicist, reached instinctively for a weapon that wasn't there. But Dr. Vasquez, after her initial surprise, stepped forward with the curiosity that had driven her to become a scientist in the first place. "Incredible," she whispered, studying Zephian with wonder rather than fear. "You're Krillian, aren't you? But you're so young. How did you come to be traveling with a human?" Zephian looked to Sarah for guidance, then spoke carefully in its improving English. "We're take my family. Sarah mother saved Zephian when ship dying. Now we family, human, and Krillian together." The simple statement had a profound impact on the three scientists. Dr. Martinez stopped reaching for his communication device. Dr. Kim's hand relaxed away from where his sidearm would have been. Dr. Vasquez actually smiled, the expression transforming her weathered features with unexpected warmth. "That's remarkable," she said softly. "Absolutely remarkable. And you're both working together to study the asteroid field." "Zephian understand biotechnology in ways human science cannot," Sarah explained. "Those energy patterns you detected, they're not random quantum fluctuations. They're the remains of a civilization that achieved something neither our species has managed: true harmony between organic and artificial intelligence. Over the next several hours, Zephian demonstrated abilities that left the human scientists speechless. The young alien could interface directly with the ancient technologies embedded in the asteroids, awakening dormant systems that had slept for eons. Through this connection, it revealed star charts showing the locations of similar ruins throughout the galaxy, evidence of a vast civilization that had once spanned thousands of worlds. They called themselves the Symphonists, Zephian explained, its violet eyes glowing with reflected energy from the awakened artifacts. Believed that all consciousness, organic and artificial, part of greater song. Spent millions of years teaching others to hear music of existence. What happened to them? Dr. Vasquez asked, her scientific curiosity warring with a growing sense of awe. Transcended, Zephian replied simply. Found way to merge completely with cosmic consciousness. Left behind ruins and knowledge for others to find when ready. Dr. Kim, the physicist, was studying readings from his instruments with growing excitement. The energy patterns are stabilizing, he reported. It's as if your presence is somehow completing circuits that have been incomplete for millennia. Symphonist technology requires multiple consciousness types working in harmony, Sarah explained, her understanding enhanced by her connection with Zephian and their ship. That's why neither human nor Krillian science could activate it alone. It needs both perspectives, both types of awareness. The implications were staggering. Here was proof that cooperation between species could unlock knowledge and capabilities beyond what either could achieve alone. The ancient ruins were not just archaeological curiosities. They were guidebooks for building a better future. When the time came for the scientists to return to their repaired ship, Dr. Vasquez made an unexpected proposal. I want to continue studying these ruins, she said, but not for Earth Defense Force. This knowledge is too important to be weaponized. Would you consider working together? Officially, Sarah and Zephian exchange a long look, their hybrid consciousness allowing them to share thoughts and emotions without words. Here was the opportunity they had dreamed of, the chance to begin building bridges between species, to create something better than endless war. Yes, Sarah said finally, but it can't just be us. We'll need others from both sides, people who believe that cooperation is possible. I know at least a dozen scientists who would risk their careers for a chance at this kind of discovery, Dr. Vasquez said firmly, and I suspect there are Krillians who feel the same way about their own research being used only for war. As the human research vessel departed with plans for a secret rendezvous in 2 weeks' time, Sarah felt a surge of hope that she hadn't experienced since the war began. They were taking the first steps towards something unprecedented, a truly integrated community of humans and Krillians working together toward common goals. But even as she dared to hope for a better future, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that their actions would soon draw attention from forces on both sides who profited from the continuation of the war. The path ahead would be dangerous, filled with betrayals and difficult choices. Yet looking at Zephian, seeing the quiet determination in those violet eyes, she knew they would face whatever came together. The transformation that had begun with a simple act of mercy was accelerating, creating ripples that would soon spread far beyond their small ship. The question was whether those ripples would become waves of change powerful enough to reshape the galaxy, or whether they would be crushed by the weight of a war that had consumed both their species for far too long. The secret rendezvous point was a dead system on the very edge of explored space, where the gravitational interference from a collapsed star made sensor readings unreliable. It was the perfect place for clandestine meetings, which was why Sarah felt her blood turn cold when they arrived to find not just Dr. Vasquez's research vessel, but 5 other ships waiting in the shadow of a shattered moon. Sarah Mother worried. Zephian observed, its violet eyes studying the sensor readings with the hybrid consciousness they now shared. Through their connection to the ship, the young alien could perceive details that conventional scanners missed. 3 ships human, 2 ships Krillian, all hiding weapons, all afraid. Sarah's hand moved instinctively toward the emergency controls, ready to engage their ship's enhanced cloaking systems and flee. But Zephian's small hand covered hers, stopping the motion. "Wait," the young alien said softly. "Feel their hearts through ship song. Fear, yes, but not of us. Fear of hope. Fear that dream might be real." Through their neural link to the ship's consciousness, Sarah began to perceive what Zephian meant. The assembled vessels weren't preparing for combat. They were maintaining defensive postures born of habit and desperation. These were ships crewed by individuals who had risked everything to come here, driven by the same exhaustion with endless war that had motivated her to save Zephian in the first place. Dr. Vasquez's voice crackled over the communication system, tense but determined. "Sarah, thank God you made it. We've got a delicate situation here. Word of what we discovered has spread faster than I expected. I've got researchers from both sides who want to see the Symphonist technology for themselves." "Is it safe?" Sarah asked, still wary despite Zephian's reassurance. "As safe as anything can be when you're trying to prevent a war," came an unexpected voice over the channel. The accent was distinctly Krillian, but the words were spoken in fluent English. "I am research singer Valith of the Exploration Cast. We have come seeking the harmony knowledge that the young singer has reportedly awakened." Sarah felt Zephian tense beside her at the mention of its former title. Among the Krillians, singers held positions of tremendous respect and responsibility, serving as the psychic bridges between their bioships and the greater song that connected all Krillian consciousness. For an adult singer to acknowledge a child's abilities was unprecedented. "Zephian no longer just singer," the young alien said, its voice carrying a new note of confidence. "Now something new, something that can teach both peoples to hear deeper songs." The meeting that followed was unlike anything in recorded history. Representatives from both species gathered in the cargo bay of Dr. Vasquez's research vessel, the largest of the assembled ships. Sarah and Zephian arrived to find a tension-filled but hopeful gathering. 5 human scientists, 3 Krillian researcher explorers, and a handful of others whose exact allegiances seemed deliberately obscured. Research singer Valith proved to be a mature Krillian female whose biomodifications were more subtle than the militaristic augmentations Sarah had seen during the war. Her skin showed the flowing blue patterns of her caste, but these were complemented by what appeared to be technological implants that allowed direct interface with various scientific instruments. "The young one carries knowledge that our species has sought for generations," Valith said, studying Zephian with respectful curiosity rather than the possessive hunger Sarah had feared. "But the manner of this knowledge awakening is unprecedented. Human and Krillian consciousness merged? This should not be possible according to our understanding of psychic resonance patterns." "Maybe understanding is wrong," Zephian replied with the direct simplicity that Sarah had come to love about the young alien. "Maybe species songs can harmonize if hearts open to possibility." Dr. Martinez, the xenobiologist from Dr. Vasquez's team, leaned forward intently. "The physiological implications are staggering," he said. "The neural pathway differences between human and Krillian brains should make any kind of consciousness merger impossible. Yet somehow you've not only achieved it, you've integrated it with artificial intelligence systems." "Show them," Zephian said to Sarah, violet eyes bright with enthusiasm. "Show them what harmony can create." With some trepidation, Sarah agreed to demonstrate their ship's capabilities. The assembled scientists watched in amazement as she and Zephian interfaced with the vessel's consciousness, their combined awareness flowing through every system and sensor. Through their connection, the ship began to change, its hull flowing and reshaping itself to demonstrate the perfect integration of human engineering principles with Krillian biotechnology. But the real revelation came when Zephian extended their shared consciousness to encompass the ancient Symphonist artifacts Sarah had brought from the asteroid field. The dormant technologies awakened in response to the hybrid awareness, projecting holographic displays that filled the cargo bay with flowing symbols and mathematical equations that somehow conveyed meaning beyond language. Incredible, whispered Dr. Chun, a human theoretical physicist whose unofficial presence suggested connections to classified research projects. These mathematical relationships, they describe consciousness itself as a fundamental force of the universe, like gravity or electromagnetism. Research singer Valith's response was even more dramatic. The Krillian scientist's biomodifications began glowing with sympathetic resonance as she accessed her species' racial memory databanks. The deep archives speak of this, she said, her voice filled with awe. The song before songs, the harmony that existed before the sundering drove our species apart. The symphonists achieved what our ancestors could only dream of. What's sundering? Sarah asked, sensing that this was crucial information. Valith and the other Krillians exchanged looks that spoke of ancient pain. Long ago, before space travel, before war, humans and Krillians shared homeworld, Valith explained slowly. Same star system, different planets. Krillian ancestors remember cooperation, shared learning. But something happened, something that drove species apart, made them forget harmony. The implications hit the assembled scientists like a thunderbolt. If humans and Krillians had once coexisted peacefully, if they had once been able to work together, then the current war was not inevitable. It was aberration, a tragic deviation from a more hopeful past. The symphonists weren't just another ancient civilization, Dr. Vasquez realized aloud. They were what we could have become if the sundering had never happened. They were showing us our potential future. But their revelations were interrupted by urgent alerts from all the assembled ships. Long-range sensors had detected incoming vessels, a combined human-Krillian battle group, moving in perfect coordination toward their hidden meeting point. Impossible, Dr. Chen muttered, his face pale with shock. Human and Krillian forces don't cooperate. Ever. Sarah felt ice flow through her veins as understanding dawned. Unless they have a common enemy, she said grimly. Something that threatens both sides enough to make them work together. Through their ship's enhanced sensors, Sarah and Zephian could perceive details about the approaching fleet that terrified them both. These weren't standard military vessels. They bore the modified configurations of the purest factions, extremist groups on both sides who believed that any contact between species was contamination that must be destroyed. They know, research singer Valith said, her voice heavy with resignation. Somehow, they know what we have discovered here, and they will not allow such knowledge to spread. The choice before them was stark: surrender and face certain execution for treason, or fight and likely die in the process. But Zephian stood up in the center of the gathering, its young voice carrying unexpected authority. There is third choice, the young alien announced. We run, but not alone. We run together, human and Krillian ships in harmony formation. Use symphonist knowledge to become invisible to both sides. The ships are incompatible, Dr. Chin protested. Human and Krillian technology can interface directly. Our navigation systems alone use completely different hyperspace algorithms. Zephian smiled, the expression startlingly beautiful on its alien features. Zephian can be bridge between both, can teach ships to sing together, make fleet that belongs to neither side but serves both. What followed was the most extraordinary technological collaboration in galactic history. Working with desperate urgency, as the purest fleet closed on their position, Sarah and Zephian began linking their consciousness to each of the assembled vessels. Human and Krillian engineers worked side by side, sharing technical knowledge that had been classified secrets moments before. The process was agonizing for Zephian. Sarah could feel the young alien's life force stretching to encompass multiple ship consciousnesses, creating neural bridges between incompatible systems. But the young Krillian refused to stop, driven by a vision of harmony that transcended species boundaries. Zephian, you're pushing too hard, Sarah warned, feeling the strain through their shared connection. This could kill you. Worth the risk, Zephian replied, its violet eyes burning with determination. Sarah Mother teaches Zephian that some things more important than one life. This one of those things. One by one, the assembled ships began to change. Human vessels sprouted bioneural networks that allowed them to interface with Krillian psychic guidance systems. Krillian bioships developed crystalline computational matrices that could process human mathematical algorithms. Most remarkably, all the ships began to resonate with the same harmonic frequency, their consciousness bridges creating a fleet-wide neural network. When the purest forces arrived at the rendezvous point, they found empty space. Their sensors detected no ships, no energy signatures, nothing but the background radiation of the dead system. The hybrid fleet had achieved something unprecedented, perfect invisibility through consciousness integration. But the effort had taken a severe toll on Zephian. The young alien collapsed as soon as the fleet achieved safe hiding within a nebula cloud, its small body trembling with exhaustion. Sarah caught the falling child, her heart breaking as she felt how much of its life force had been expended to save them all. "Worth it," Zephian whispered weakly. "Now a beginning of new harmony. Ships that can teach others to sing together." Dr. Vasquez and research singer Valeth worked together to examine the unconscious child, their combined medical knowledge revealing the true scope of what Zephian had accomplished. The young alien had fundamentally altered its own neural structure, transforming itself into a living bridge between consciousness types. "It's remarkable," Dr. Vasquez said softly. "Its brain has developed entirely new neural pathways, structures we've never seen in either species. It's becoming something unprecedented." Zephian evolving, Valeth agreed, her biomodifications detecting patterns invisible to human instruments. Becoming first of new kind, new harmony makers. But process dangerous, possibly fatal. Child pushing beyond normal biological limits. Sarah held Zephian's small hand, watching the steady rise and fall of its breathing. The young alien had given everything to create this moment of hope, this possibility for a better future. Now, it was up to the rest of them to prove worthy of that sacrifice. Over the following days, as the hybrid fleet remained hidden in the nebula while Zephian recovered, something unprecedented began to emerge. The integrated ship's consciousness network allowed perfect communication between human and Krillian crew members, translating not just languages, but cultural concepts and emotional contexts. For the first time in generations, representatives of both species began to truly understand each other. The humans learned that Krillians experience consciousness as a shared phenomenon, with individual identity existing within, but not separate from collective awareness. The Krillians discovered that humans possessed a type of creative unpredictability that their more harmonious society had lost, a capacity for innovative thinking that could solve problems collective consciousness couldn't address. Most importantly, both sides began to recover ancestral memories that the war had buried. Through the symphonist artifacts and the expanded consciousness network, they accessed genetic and psychic records that revealed the truth about their shared past. The sundering, they learned, had not been a natural disaster or inevitable conflict. It had been artificially engineered by an outside force, beings from beyond their galaxy who saw the potential cooperation between humans and Krillians as a threat to their own expansionist plans. The current war was not just a tragedy. It was the continuation of an ancient manipulation designed to prevent their species from achieving their true potential. "We've been played," Dr. Chun said grimly as the full scope of the deception became clear. "For generations, both our species have been dancing to someone else's tune, fighting wars that serve interests that aren't our own. But now we know," Valeth replied, her usual calm shaken by the magnitude of the revelation. "And knowledge is power to change the dance pattern." When Zephian finally woke 3 days after their escape, the young alien's first words were not about its own condition, but about the future they were building together. Fleet's song growing stronger, it said with satisfaction, sensing the harmonious interactions taking place throughout their small community. Beginning to hear echo of true symphonist harmony. Soon ready to teach others, Sarah felt a surge of protective love for this remarkable child who had given so much to make their dream of cooperation possible. But she also felt a growing concern about the price Zephian was paying for their success. Each time the young alien extended its consciousness to integrate new technologies or create harmony between incompatible systems, it seemed to lose a little more of its individual identity. "Zephian," she said carefully, "what happens to you when this is all over? When we've built this new harmony you're creating?" The young alien looked up at her with eyes that seemed to contain depths of ancient wisdom despite their apparent youth. "Zephian becoming what always meant to become," it said simply. "Bridge between worlds, translator of different songs. Is good change, even if scary for Sarah Mother." But even as Zephian spoke of its transformation with acceptance, Sarah could see the cost written in the young alien's increasingly ethereal appearance. Its physical form was becoming more translucent, as if it was slowly fading into the consciousness network it had created. The child who had become her family was evolving into something beyond individual existence, and there might be no way to stop or reverse the process. As their hidden fleet prepared to emerge from the nebula and begin the dangerous work of spreading their message of cooperation to others throughout the galaxy, Sarah made a silent promise. She would protect Zephian's physical existence as fiercely as she had protected its life when they first met. The universe might demand sacrifices for the greater good, but she refused to let this remarkable child sacrifice everything, even for the sake of galactic peace. The transformation that had begun with a single act of mercy was accelerating towards something unprecedented. But Sarah was determined that when it reached its conclusion, Zephian would still exist to see the harmony it had made possible. Some bonds, she had learned, were stronger than the forces that sought to reshape the universe, and her connection to this extraordinary young being was one of them. The message reached them while their hybrid fleet was conducting its first recruitment mission in the Tertian sector, a region where war-weary merchants and independent colonies had grown tired of choosing sides in a conflict that seemed to have no end. Sarah was reviewing sensor data from their latest convert, a human freight consortium that had agreed to install symphonist harmony interfaces in their entire fleet when the emergency beacon began transmitting across their consciousness network. It was Zephian who interpreted the signal first, the young alien's expanding awareness allowing it to decode the complex harmonics embedded within the transmission. What it found made the child's already translucent features grow even paler. "Is message from deep space," Zephian said, its voice carrying undertones of harmonics that Sarah's enhanced hearing could now perceive. "From beyond edge of known galaxy. The architects awaken." Sarah felt ice flow through her veins at the name. Through their connection to the Symphonist database, she had learned about the architects, the ancient enemy whose manipulation had caused the sundering between humans and Krillians millennia ago. They were beings from dark space beyond the galactic rim, entities that existed partially outside normal space-time and could manipulate matter and consciousness in ways that defied conventional understanding. "How long?" Sarah asked, though she dreaded the answer. Zephian closed its violet eyes and extended its consciousness through the network, touching the awareness of symphonist ruins scattered across hundreds of worlds. When it opened them again, the young alien's expression carried the weight of cosmic inevitability. "Architect Vanguard reaches outer spiral arms in 6 months local time," Zephian reported. "Full invasion fleet follows in 2 years. They bring devices to break harmony permanently, to ensure no cooperation possible between any conscious species." The assembled fleet commanders received the news with varying degrees of disbelief and terror. Research singer Valetha's biomodifications glowed with stress patterns as she accessed the deepest levels of Krillian racial memory. Dr. Vasquez and Her team ran frantic calculations, trying to determine if their small coalition could possibly stand against a force that had manipulated galactic history for millions of years. "We're not ready," Dr. Chun said bluntly, his physicist's mind grappling with the scope of the threat. "We've got 37 ships in our Harmony network, maybe a few thousand personnel total. The architects conquered entire galactic clusters. What can we possibly do against that?" But Zephian stood up in the center of their command conference, its small form radiating a determination that seemed to fill the space around them with possibility. "We not fight architects with ships or weapons," the young alien announced. "We fight with harmony itself. Show Galaxy what cooperation can create. Make architect manipulation impossible through pure connection between conscious beings." Sarah felt a surge of protective alarm as she sensed what Zephian was suggesting. The young alien was proposing to expand the consciousness network on a scale that would encompass entire star systems, possibly entire sectors of space. But such an effort would require it to stretch its awareness beyond any sustainable limit. "Zephian, that could destroy you completely," she protested. "You're already fading from the connections you've made. If you try to link entire populations." "Sarah Mother understand correctly," Zephian replied gently. "But also understand why necessary. Architects feed on division, on fear between different consciousness types. It can create unity across galaxy. Architects have no power source. They cannot manipulate what exists in perfect harmony." The debate that followed was unlike anything in recorded history. Human and Krillian military strategists found themselves arguing alongside peaceful researchers and merchant captains, all united by the growing threat from beyond their galaxy. Through the consciousness network, they could share thoughts and emotions directly, making deception impossible and allowing for a depth of understanding that transcended species barriers. Gradually, a consensus emerged. Their small fleet would split into multiple groups, each tasked with awakening symphonist ruins in different sectors of space. The ancient artifacts would serve as nodes in a vast consciousness network, creating harmony zones where the architect manipulation tactics would be ineffective. But the plan required someone capable of maintaining coherent awareness across such distances, someone who could serve as the central coordinator for a network spanning light years. There was only one individual whose consciousness had evolved enough to attempt such a feat. "I'll start with the core worlds," Zephian said, already beginning to plan the massive undertaking. Human Earth and Krillian homeworld simultaneous awakening. Once Symphonist network active in both government centers, can spread through official channels instead of underground resistance. "The governments will never agree to it," Dr. Vasquez pointed out. "Both sides have too much invested in the war to consider cooperation." Zephian's smile carried depths of ancient wisdom that still seemed impossible in someone so young. "Governments will have no choice when population experiences harmony directly, cannot maintain hate when consciousness connected to love." The mission to Earth was Sarah's responsibility, both because she understood human psychology best among their group and because her connection to Zephian would allow the young alien to maintain network stability across the vast distances involved. Taking a single ship equipped with Symphonist interface technology, she set course for humanity's birth world, while Valeth led a similar mission toward the Krillian homeworld. The journey took 3 weeks through hyperspace, during which Sarah felt Zephian's presence in her mind growing stronger and more pervasive. The young alien was preparing for the massive consciousness expansion that would be required, gathering its dispersed awareness into a focused core that could span interstellar distances. "Are you sure about this?" Sarah asked during one of their shared meditation sessions, feeling the barely contained power building within Zephian's evolving consciousness. "Sure of purpose, yes," Zephian replied. "Sure of survival, no. But Sarah Mother taught me that some things worth any risk. Protecting family, protecting innocence, protecting future of harmony. These things matter more than one small life." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes as she realized how much the young alien had learned from their time together. Zephian had internalized the human capacity for self-sacrifice while retaining the Krillian understanding of consciousness as a shared phenomenon. The child had become something truly unique, a bridge between worldviews that could create unprecedented possibilities. Earth appeared before them like a blue-white jewel against the cosmic void, its familiar continents stirring emotions in Sarah that she hadn't felt since leaving home years earlier. But the planet was surrounded by a vast military fleet, the combined forces of the Earth Defense Force maintaining constant vigilance against Krillian attack. How do we get through? Sarah wondered aloud, studying the defensive formations that blocked all approach routes. Not get through, Zephian corrected gently. Go around. Symphonist ruins not on planet surface. Hidden in asteroid mining stations, old research facilities, places where consciousness technology was studied before war began. Using their ship's enhanced sensors and Zephian's connection to the ancient network, they located 3 Symphonist sites in Earth's outer system. One in the asteroid belt, another on a mining platform near Jupiter, and the third hidden within an abandoned research station that had been studying consciousness transfer technologies before the war made such research too dangerous to continue. The activation process was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. As Zephian interfaced with the dormant Symphonist technology, the young alien's consciousness expanded to encompass not just their ship, but the entire local space around them. Sarah felt herself becoming part of that expansion, her awareness stretching to touch every mind within the growing network. The effect was immediate and profound. Throughout Earth's system, from the orbital stations to the military fleets, people began to experience something unprecedented: direct connection to the consciousness of others. Human minds touched human minds without barriers, sharing thoughts and emotions in ways that made deception and hatred impossible to maintain. On Earth itself, the changes were even more dramatic. The Symphonist network awakened dormant genetic memories in the human population, reminders of a time when cooperation with other consciousness types had been natural and beneficial. The artificial divisions that had sustained the war effort began to crumble as people remembered what they had lost when the architects drove their species apart. But the effort required to maintain such a vast network took a terrible toll on Zephian. Sarah watched in helpless anguish as the young alien's physical form began to fade, becoming increasingly translucent as its consciousness dispersed across the growing harmony field. Zephian, you have to slow down, she pleaded, trying to anchor the child's awareness to her own through their shared connection. You're losing yourself in the network. Not losing, Zephian whispered, its voice now carrying harmonics from thousands of connected minds. Becoming what always meant to become. Bridge consciousness, harmony maker, singer of unity songs. Similar transformations were occurring throughout the galaxy as other teams activated Symphonist sites. On the Krillian homeworld, Valith reported success in awakening ancient consciousness networks that connected entire city minds. In the merchant sectors, independent colonies began experiencing spontaneous cooperation as the harmony field spread through trade routes and communication networks. But the architects were not passive observers of these developments. As the consciousness network reached critical mass, reality itself began to fluctuate around the awakened Symphonist sites. Dimensional barriers weakened as the ancient enemy began to manifest, their very presence warping space-time in ways that threatened to tear the Harmony network apart. The first direct contact came through the Earth network. Sarah felt Zephian's consciousness suddenly flooded with alien awareness, entities that existed partially outside normal reality and spoke in concepts that transcended language. Little harmony builders. The architect presence communicated with amusement that carried undertones of cosmic cruelty. Still, you do not understand. Cooperation is weakness. Division is strength. We will show you the truth of isolation. What followed was an assault on consciousness itself. The architects began broadcasting waves of pure alienation, emotional frequencies designed to break bonds between connected minds and restore the artificial divisions that had served their purposes for so long. Throughout the network, humans and Krillians felt sudden surges of xenophobic hatred, irrational fears that threatened to shatter the harmony Zephian had worked so hard to create. But the young alien had learned something during its transformation that the architects had not anticipated. By dispersing its consciousness throughout the network, while maintaining its core identity through connection to Sarah, Zephian had become something the ancient manipulators couldn't directly attack, a consciousness that existed in the spaces between minds rather than within individual awareness. Architects afraid, Zephian realized its distributed voice carrying new understanding. Fear what they cannot control, cannot isolate. Bridge consciousness cannot be broken because it exists in connections themselves, not in separate beings. The battle for galactic consciousness had begun, but it was being fought with weapons the architects had never encountered. Love that transcended species boundaries, cooperation that created strength rather than vulnerability, and unity that preserved individuality rather than destroying it. Sarah felt Zephian's awareness flowing through every connection in the growing network, teaching connected minds to resist the architect manipulation through the simple act of choosing cooperation over division. But she also felt the young alien's individual identity continuing to fade as it became more deeply integrated with the cosmic harmony it was creating. Zephian, she called through their private connection, trying to reach the core of the child's consciousness before it dispersed completely. Remember who you are. Remember that you're my family, not just a bridge between species. For a moment, the vast cosmic awareness focused back into the familiar violet eyes she had grown to love. Sarah, mother, Zephian whispered, its voice carrying all the affection and gratitude that had grown between them. Never forget family. But now family bigger than just us two. Family includes all conscious beings who choose harmony over hate. As the architect assault intensified and reality itself began to warp around their expanding network, Sarah realized that the final confrontation would require more than just technological solutions or consciousness manipulation. It would require someone willing to make the ultimate sacrifice to protect everything they had built together. Looking at Zephian's increasingly ethereal form, Sarah knew that sacrifice might be closer than either of them wanted to admit. But she also knew that whatever price the universe demanded, they would face it together, as they had faced everything else since that first moment when she had chosen to save a dying alien child rather than maintain the artificial boundaries of war. W.